Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the small town of Maplewood, shadows held stories that the sun rarely illuminated. Nestled between dense forests and rolling hills, its picturesque exterior masked a deeper, unsettling reality. Residents bustled about their daily routines, oblivious to the darkness lurking just beneath the surface. Winding streets echoed the laughter of children playing, and the scent of baked bread wafted from the local bakery. Yet an unease permeated the air. Folk whispered of strange occurrences, of enigmatic lights flickering in the woods, and distant howls that disrupted the quiet of the night. On the edges of Maplewood, a forgotten road led to a decaying mansion that once stood proudly at the town's estate, now draped in ivy and secrets. The facade bore the weight of time. Its windows were opaque with filth, and the once grand entryway appeared to sag as if burdened by the memories of its past. The locals steered clear of the place. It was an unspoken rule, a relic of tragedy long buried yet never forgotten. But below the surface, buried in the whispers of parents and the nervous glances of passers-by, one incident had become the catalyst for the town's growing tension. It was a disappearance, the kind that sent ripples through the community, prompted cautious glances in grocery aisles, and held parents in sleepless torment. 2 summers had passed since Ethan Grant vanished without a trace. He was just 12 years old, the kind of boy whose laughter could light up an afternoon, and whose energy seemed boundless. As the anniversary approached, the town prepared to confront its own past, unaware that what haunted them in that tangled forest would soon come creeping back into the light. The victim. Ethan Grant was a child of endless curiosity and energy. At 12, he stood just under 5 feet tall, with unruly chestnut hair and bright blue eyes that held a hint of mischief. Friends would describe him as adventurous. He didn't shy away from exploring the thicket behind his house, or climbing the tallest trees in pursuit of hidden treasures. He was the kind of boy who wore his heart on his sleeve, sensitive, yet bold enough to take risks that would often send parents into fits of worry. On most afternoons, you could find Ethan with his trusty dog, Max, wandering the trails at Maplewood Park. They shared a bond cultivated through their shared adventures. Max would chase squirrels while Ethan clambered over rocks and searched for wildflowers. It was during one of these excursions, on a warm June day, that he would disappear. The sun had hung low in the sky, casting long shadows as dusk approached. His mother, Jane, had called him home, her voice mixing with the soft rustle of leaves. But Ethan didn't return. After hours of searching, a sense of dread swept through the town. Friends gathered, eyes wide with fear as the sun dipped below the horizon. Ethan's absence wasn't just a missing boy. It was the encroachment of fear upon a once peaceful community. The police were called, search parties organized, but the labyrinthine woods offered no solace. Days turned into weeks, and as the town mourned, secrets began to unfold, stories of shadowy figures glimpsed in the trees, of whispers that floated through the air like the remnants of an unanswered prayer. Ethan Grant had become more than a beloved child. He was now an aching reminder of something hidden, tethering the town to its darkest fear. The crime scene. 3 weeks after Ethan Grant vanished, on an overcast morning, a group of volunteer searchers traversed the underbrush of Maplewood Park. The pungent scent of damp earth and decaying leaves filled the air, a stark contrast to the previous buzz of activity that came with the summer months. Braving the pervasive gloom, they called Ethan's name, the echoes fading into the silence of the forest, swallowed by the tall pines and thick foliage. At the edge of a small clearing, one of the volunteers, an elderly man named Harold, noticed something glinting amidst the underbrush. As he drew closer, a chill shot up his spine. There, half buried in a bed of leaves and mud, lay Ethan's baseball cap, unmistakable with its faded logo and frayed brim. Heart pounding, Harold crouched down to retrieve it, his mind racing with possibilities. The cap was a symbol. They were close too closey, yet the fear of what that might mean gripped him harder than the chill in the air. The authorities were called, and the clearing quickly transformed into a crime scene as law enforcement arrived in droves. Yellow tape cordoned off the area, while forensic teams swarmed, documenting every inch. Nature, indifferent to humanity, pressed in around them. The wind rustled through the trees, mocking their futile efforts to uncover the truth. Investigators noted the surrounding landscape, a treacherous blend of thickets and shadows. Each rustle could have harbored memories of laughter, now overshadowed by dread. As the search persisted, a sense of foreboding settled over the scene. The town, already strained with grief, hovered on the brink of despair. Whatever events had transpired here, they loomed like specters in the air, waiting to be unveiled. In that moment, the search for Ethan transformed from a recovery mission into a desperate hunt for answers, confronting not just the woods, but the very heart of Maplewood itself. The early investigation. As news of Ethan's disappearance spread, Maplewood was saturated with fear and confusion, causing a crack in the town's tranquil facade. In the weeks following his disappearance, the police began their investigation, meticulously combing through the evidence, interviewing friends, family, and neighbors. Detective Anna Morris, a veteran investigator with a sharp mind and empathetic heart, was assigned to the case. She understood that behind each interview was a life altered forever, a community shaken to its core. The wind was biting as Detective Morris stepped into the Grant home, where posters filled with Ethan's cheerful face plastered the walls, evidence of a life that once thrived here. Jane Grant, exhausted from sleepless nights, cradled the baseball cap in her hands, her gaze distant. Morris listened carefully as Jane recounted the day Ethan had disappeared, her voice wavering with the strain of lost hope. Each detail was significant to Ethan's plans for the day. The unusual behavior of a few local teenagers seen lurking around the park, fleeting shadows that could easily be dismissed. As the investigation progressed, it became apparent that the town was concealing its own murky undercurrents. Rumors swirled, hinting at a small group of teens, known for their rebellious streak, frequently spotted near the edge of the forest. Detective Morris made note of their names, ready to dig deeper. The community seemed divided. Some were supportive, while others turned introspective, holding back secrets that thrummed beneath their surface. Morris sensed a shift, the town closing in on itself, paranoia taking root as each day passed without answers. Among the whispers, a fear began to take shape. Cold. The very people in their midst harbor darkness. The detectives pushed forward, determined to peel back the layers, one conversation at a time, as the clock ticked ominously on. Maplewood needed answers, but it would come at a cost. The dead ends. As the weeks passed, Ethan's case slipped further into a quagmire of uncertainty, overwhelming both the investigators and the community they sought to protect. Detective Morris and her team meticulously followed each lead. But as the days turned into months, they encountered more dead ends than breakthroughs. The local teens, once considered potential witnesses, proved to be a frustrating puzzle. Their stories ranged from contradictory to vague, leaving detectives grappling with a tangled web of miscommunication and evasion. Several teenagers mentioned seeing Ethan playing with Max the day of his disappearance, but none could clearly remember their last sighting. Other leads led to deadpan interviews filled with aloofness and defiance. It felt as if the town itself was cultivating an air of secrecy. Whispers exchanged behind closed doors suggesting knowledge of something darker. Detective Morris noted the hesitation in those she interviewed, as if their shared concern was palatable but obscured by fear. As her investigation meandered deeper into faded paths, in retrospect, several key leads resurfaced alongside fading hope. A supposed sighting of a striking blue van near the park garnered brief excitementally for its owner to be cleared as an alibi emerged. Each time optimism flickered, reality swiftly extinguished it. Morris was left to sift through tips that led nowhere, each turn a reminder of the growing chasm separating them from Ethan. Frustration gnawed at her resolve. Eyewitness accounts were fraught with ambiguity, stray sightings, vague recollections, all contributing to a cacophony of confusion. In Maplewood, the shadows were growing deeper, just as the determination of the police became steeled by the protective love for a child they might never find. The weight of the investigation bore heavily on Detective Morris's shoulders, knowing that they were running out of time, yet any truth remained stubbornly out of reach. A break in the case. After a drawn-out dry spell in the investigation, the crisp air one October morning brought a sense of possibility. Detective Morris received a call from a young woman who lived on the outskirts of Maplewood, a town away. Her voice trembled as she recounted a strange occurrence that had taken place on the day Ethan went missing. She had been out for a morning jog when she spotted a figure near the woods, edge a child with a dog, just moments before she heard cries echo through the trees. Her fear for the child's safety urged her to take a few steps closer, but the sight she encountered the same blue van idling nearby sent her heart racing. The van's windows were tinted, and as the jogger approached, she felt a sense of foreboding wash over her. She retreated in haste, considering it a coincidence until the news of Ethan's disappearance broke. When she heard reports of a missing boy, her memory sharpened, and for the first time, her courage outweighed her fear. Detective Morris arranged to meet the jogger, taking meticulous notes as she listened. The woman, visibly shaken, described specific details about the Vana logo on the side, the faint smell of burnt coffee emanating from inside. She even recalled a glimpse of a man with striking tattoos, a detail crucial for the investigation, as there were reports of such men often loitering in the area, recognizing them more as a nuisance than a threat. As the sun set behind the trees, casting an amber hue across the assembled team, Detective Morris felt a surge of hope for the first time in weeks. They had a solid opportunity to uncover something substantial. The police would pull together resources to locate the van and identify its driver. As they prepared for what felt like another beginning, the oppressive weight of uncertainty began to lift. The shadows cast by Maplewood seemed less daunting. Perhaps they were on the cusp of finding a If only the pieces aligned, they might finally unveil the truth. The suspect. Days after the jogger's revelation, the investigation gained a palpable momentum. Detective Morris collaborated with her team to track down the blue van. Combing through traffic footage and local registries, their efforts yielded results. A distinct vehicle had been seen parked near the park registered to a man named David Locke, a 35-year-old with a tumultuous past. Locke had a history steeped in trouble. Charges of harassment and domestic violence marred his record, yet he had no prior accusations of child-related offenses. As Morris delved deeper, she discovered that he had recently moved to Maplewood, purchasing the van not long before Ethan's disappearance. And now, that same man was a regular in the local diner, a figure often overlooked in the corner booth. Keeping to himself, but always observing the conversations unfolding around. When the detectives initiated contact with Locke, he seemed disheveled but cooperative, his appearance reflecting a nervous energy. He claimed to have witnessed Ethan on the day he went missing, speaking to the boy directly to calm him down, assuring him of safety. Yet his details were vague and inconsistent. Morris noted the subtle shift in his demeanor as she pressed him on those details. His eyes darted, lips trembling. Instead of kindness, something darker lingered just beneath the surface of his voice. His tattoo-swirling designs that whispered of a past life were also disconcerting, providing both curiosity and discomfort. As they left the diner, Morris felt that compelling sensation settle once more. She was now wrestling with doubt. Could he be the man they were apprehensive to confront? With evidence to connect Locke to the areas frequented by Ethan and his reluctance to provide much more than shallow pleasantries, the pieces began to align. It was time to dig deeper. As night fell over Maplewood, the community remained shrouded in anxiety. The lingering question that haunted them all swirled in the gathering darkness. Was David Locke a protector or a predator? A trial. The progression of the investigation finally led them to a day long awaited one that felt both like a culmination and a mere beginning. The trial of David Locke commenced in the often dimly lit courthouse of Maplewood. A palpable tension clouded the air, filling the wooden pews with restless energy as townsfolk gathered to witness the proceedings. Everyone wore the imprint of loss on their faces, hoping for clarity amidst the fear that had settled in their hearts. Inside the courtroom, Morris sat among the gathered audience, heartened by the presence of witnesses who had come forward. A marked absence echoed louder than any words. The vacant seat intended for Ethan Grant's family left a void that could hardly be filled. Jane Grant had decided to stay home, unable to endure the grueling atmosphere that would dissect her son's memory publicly. Yet in spirit, he remained woven into each moment of the trial. The prosecution laid out their evidence. Eyewitness accounts linked David Locke to both the blue van and possible sightings of the boy near the park. Morris heard the testimonies unfold like tightly wound strings, revealing the reality of a community fractured by fear yet cautiously hopeful. As the witness who had spotted Locke's van took the stand, she recounted the chilling day that had haunted her since. Her voice trembled just enough to evoke sympathy from the jury, her truth weighed down by past regret. As the defense aimed to discredit the witnesses, portraying Locke as an innocent victim of circumstance, the tension in the room thickened. The air became stale, pinched with the uncertainty of how the jury would interpret the evidence. Each twist and turn seemed to tug at the threads of the town's resilience, pushing them toward the precipice of pain and closure. Morris clutched a notepad tightly, ensuring she recorded every detail meticulously. The investigation that had sparked hope for recovery was diving headlong into something more complex: truth intertwined with anguish. And as the proceedings wore on, she began to realize that the ultimate resolution might not only lie in the verdict, but the collective healing of a community scarred by loss. The aftermath. The jury's verdict echoed through the wooden halls of the Maplewood courthouse, reverberating in the hearts of all who had gathered. David Locke was found guilty of child endangerment and a string of related offenses, but the charge of kidnapping was ultimately dismissed due to insufficient evidence. A mixture of relief and frustration coursed through the crowd. Justice had been served, yet Ethan remained missing, and the town still bore the scars of his absence. In the weeks that followed, the community attempted to return to a semblance of normalcy. The local park, once a hub of laughter and life, transformed into a somber gathering space. Children played cautiously, their innocence shadowed by the memory of one who never returned. Vigils were held, flickering candles lining the paths each night, marking a collective memory anchored in grief and hope. Detective Morris, while relieved to see some semblance of justice, felt an ache for closure that still eluded her. The gavel's thud in the courtroom did nothing to ease the burden she carried. The end of Locke's trial felt more like a new beginning for the residents of Maplewood, centered on confronting their raw fears. Jane Grant began speaking at community meetings, sharing her experience in hopes of supporting others undergoing similar tragedies. Morris attended these gatherings, where survivors imbued strength into one another through shared stories. It was a slow but necessary healing process. As the seasons changed and autumn shifted to winter, the sobering realities of life became intertwined with a newfound resilience within the town. Decisions made within the courthouse had forged a path for parents to advocate for stronger protections and awareness surrounding children's safety. Morris became an active participant in those discussions, embodying the hope that arose from anguish. Each step felt heavy, but slowly, Maplewood began to stitch itself back together. One moment of solidarity at a time. Though Ethan remained at the heart of the town's spirit, it became clear that while his absence would always echo, the memories and love he inspired would guide them as they ventured into the uncertain future, bonded together by shared loss and compassionate understanding. Reflection. As winter melted into spring, the town of Maplewood began to heal amidst the scars of loss. Detective Morris often found herself at the park where Ethan once played. The lush green grass slowly replaced the remnants of winter's grip, and buds blossomed on the once barren trees, a metaphor for the resilience blooming in the community. But even as life returned to the forest, Morris grappled with the nagging question of whether they had done enough to find Ethan. Sitting on a bench overlooking the swings, she reflected on the past months where courage and fear intertwined. Each step against the darkness revealed a growing recognition of what true community means: support in moments of deepest sorrow and action driven by love. The stories of one lost child echoed throughout Maplewood, reverberating in the very soil they walked upon. Morris sensed that healing transcended verdicts and trials. It lay in a collective commitment to safeguard future generations, to honor the memory of a boy whose laughter once filled the air. The echoes of Ethan's presence became a call to action for all, reminding them that while justice had limited reach, the bonds of community could build a fortress of understanding, resilience, and love. As she stood and took a deep breath, the rustling leaves and chirping birds offered her solace. Ethan will always be a part of Maplewood. And as the sun dipped low, casting warm hues across the town. She made a promise to keep his spirit alive and fight for the future, no matter how tangled or uncertain the path ahead may seem.